Behind the film.
All right, go ahead.
Let me move this out the way so you can kind of zoom in.
No, you're good.
Okay. All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. We pray that this message finds you all in the Most High's perfect peace. We give all praise. Don't mess with that, man. We give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in the name of His Son Yeshua. Today's lesson that we're going into today, and we've had time praising and worshiping, and we're praying that the Most High gives us insight, because we're going to go into, I would like to say, a very deep subject. In this particular lesson, it's going to take some time. There's no way that we're going to cover it all today, right here in this sitting. So I pray that you guys are prepared to, maybe fellowship with us and follow along for the next couple of hours. And the announcement that I wanted to make is that myself and Sister Veronica and the brothers and sisters who actually tune in on Monday nights, starting, and Sister Veronica, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we start at between 6 and usually we go to about 8 o'clock. So if you want to fill in on that, maybe Sister Veronica can say, we'll give you the information to how you're able to contact her and be a part of the conversation, because we're going to continue the study. So we're going to do it starting today, and the study is called,
and that's on Monday nights
on
Facebook Live.
It's on Facebook Live, and we're going to try to maybe integrate some other platforms in it too. I don't know necessarily how to do the YouTube Live. Eventually, I don't have Facebook and necessarily care to do it, but we want to, nonetheless, for those brothers and sisters who have been studying and fellowshipping and learning with us, we want to continue to, pray that the Most High strengthens them, and that it would increase their vocation and understanding of biblical biblical principles and things about the Bible. All right, and pertaining to getting our household in order before the second coming of Yeshua. And the time is very short, brothers and sisters. So, with that being said, that's the one thing. And of course, we have the Sabbath study lessons or Sabbath service lessons that we do, and we put out every Sabbath. We want to give thanks to the Most High for making it possible. And we pray that this is enlightening to you guys, and that it's edifying to you. So, the name of the lesson is called. Listen to this. Why is it going here? It is called Who was Nimrod, and what was he known for? Okay, so I got a lot of information, and that's why I said it's going to take some time. It might take two weeks, or maybe 3 weeks, in those particular days. But as the Most High allows us to move in the Spirit, if the Spirit moves me in a different way, we'll go into that. But I believe, from what I've looked at over the last few days, that you will find this to be very interesting. I want to make a disclaimer to say, by no shape or form am I saying that this is all the information pertain to or talking about. I don't know why I did this. Talking about Nimrod or Babylon, or his wicked rule and the things that he did. So we'll first start with, I'm going to read some background information here. So ask yourself, who was Nimrod? The Bible actually says Nimrod's name 4 times in the Bible. I'm going to pull it up real time while we're here, because we have somebody trying to kind of, okay. So let me get this really quick. Nimrod. The passages where you'll find Nimrod's name would be in Genesis chapter 10 and verses 8, Genesis 10 and verse 9, 1 Chronicles chapter 1 and verses 10, and Micah chapter 5 and 6. So in the Bible, you only get a little nitbit of.
Can you repeat that again one more time? Those places you just.
Oh yeah. So Nimrod 4 times in the Bible. You got Genesis 10 and 8. We got Genesis 10 and 9, verse 9. 1 Chronicles chapter 1 and verses 10. And the book of Micah chapter 5 and verses 6. Now, Nimrod played a very pivotal role. And you have to understand. So the question is, if I ask most people, who is Nimrod? Right? What was he known for? Today, what we are attempting to do through the Spirit of the Most High is to just make you aware of who he is, what he did, And you'll come to find out that what's going on in the world today, the Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 7, there's nothing new under the sun. The thing that was, which was, will be the thing that will be done again. Until, of course, the Most High comes in and he takes all of the evil from this world out. Now, we know that Nimrod lived, if you have biblical history, he lived post-flood, on the other side of the flood. In the book of Genesis, and we're going to go to these scriptures, so I'm just trying to lay a synopsis, but I wanted to just put that disclaimer out there. It can go very, very deep. When I teach, first of all, I ask the Most High, I pray to the Most High. I send up praises to the Most High, and I ask him to give me understanding, because this is the Most High's word. But you will find that Nimrod is actually spoken about in the book of Jasher. And last night, let me see what it says in the book of Jasher. I had the book of Jasher opened up here. Let me pull it up for you for a second. The book of Jasher.
Take your time, Pastor.
Okay. Thank you.
She said?
Take my time. So in the book of Jasher, it actually speaks, or the Bible speaks of the book of Jasher 2 times. And I'm going to give you those scriptures where it's located at, okay? It says here, it is the scripture where you would find out about the book of Jasher would be Joshua 10, okay, and 13, in verse 13, and also 2 Samuel chapter 1, verses 18. When you look at the book of...
And that's where it mentions the book of Jasher.
Yeah, so in your Bible, and these particular scriptures that I've given to you, because we're actually looking in this record. Some people say, well, no, this is what you would call an extra biblical record. And it goes into great detail about who Nimrod was. And of course, our main source that we're going to use is going to come out of the Bible. Everything that's, we're not being moved from the Bible. It's the living word of the Most High. So we're going to put up the information here, give you the sources, and we're going to do a background story right now. I'm going to go right into it and read this without stopping. I'm not going to give any commentary. I'm just going to read it verbatim. And then after I read these several paragraphs about who Nimrod is, and you need to understand that when you look at Nimrod, we're also going to use our Bible, our Zondervan Illustrated Bible Dictionary to talk about who. Can you see this on there? On the camera right here.
Yeah, go down a little bit.
Okay, we're going to talk about Nimrod. Now, if I were to ask you all who Nimrod was, we know at the very beginning of Nimrod, and so let's ask our young people. Do you all know who Nimrod is? Here. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I'll say the younger people. So Nimrod, right? In the book of Genesis chapter 10, it actually gives us his lineage. Okay, and I don't want to give it all away. Let me go right into the information now, okay? So now what I pulled up, I prepared some information to give you a synopsis or the story of Nimrod. Nimrod was known, if we look in our Zondervan Bible Illustrated Dictionary, I believe it was page. Let me pull up Nimrod really quick, okay? Nimrod. N-M-O-P. Give me 1 second. There we go. So Nimrod. It says Nimrod. Where's that? It says, I'm in the Zondervan Illustrated Bible Dictionary, and it says Nimrod, he was the son of Cush and grandson of Ham. So you and I all, baby, Michelle, please, Rhea, don't walk right there. No. We know that there were 3 families. Every single person on the face of the earth comes from these people. Who are they? We had Noah and his 3 sons. Who were his 3 sons? When we go into the book of Genesis, it will tell us about it. We had Shem, we had Ham, and we had Japheth, or some people say Japheth. So the Zondervan Illustrated Bible Dictionary is telling us that Nimrod came from the son of Ham, who was the second son of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. Now, think about, where did Noah come from? I was trying to put this on your brain for a second before I read this. Noah came from the other side of the flood. You have to understand that in the days of Noah, there was a lot of wickedness going on in the earth. A lot. Okay, there was hidden knowledge that was being portrayed. There was splicing and mixing in of the DNA, mixing animals and fallen angels coming down, sleeping with the daughters of mankind, and creating hybrid beings, which you would call Nephilim, right? And so all these things were going, and what did they do? They consumed, they wanted to devour and destroy the Most High's creation. So the Most High, being all powerful, he saved his lineage through Noah, through his son Shem, down to Eber, down to Abraham. Okay? But there was someone who picked up a wickedness, and not only picked it up, he actually was responsible for expanding it and amplifying and magnifying wickedness and rebellion. Now I want to go on the record to say this. The Most High is sovereign. According to the book of Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 through 14, Satan, it says, I beheld Satan falling like lightning from the heaven. That's what Isaiah says. Satan swore in his wrath and his anger that he would be like the Most High. The Most High has a people in the earth. So does Satan has a people in the earth. And you'll come to find out that just as the Most High uses his chosen people or his choice vessels in the earth to do what? Delegate and manifest himself. So does Satan. Okay? And so, without giving it all away, Nimrod was actually, engulfed and filled with the spirit of Satan. And he was actually, used by Satan. And, he had hidden knowledge. And he elevated to the top to have all mankind. And he began to bring the world together at that time. Post-flood, on the other side of the flood, after the whole earth was just destroyed from the wickedness, Nimrod band together and have all the people come together under one ideology or one language, because they all spoke Hebrew at that time. Okay? And so the people were one. And he was the first person to have a one world government. Okay, let's say it again. He was the one known to have a one world government. So without further ado, let's go into Nimrod, where it says Nimrod, he became a mighty hunter before the Most High, expressing how renowned how he was. He was valiant. No one, he would help his. If you know about Nimrod and you read in Genesis, he would actually fight his brothers. Who was his brothers? Nimrod came from Cush, the Cushites. Okay, they also Mesrem or Egypt, the Egyptians, also came from Ham. Okay, the Ethiopians, I believe, who were Cushites, also came from Ham. Okay, but when you look at their lineage, you will begin to find out that Nimrod became valiant and he became renowned. Renowned means he was a fighter, he was a warrior. And so he would help his brethren or his people of the seed of Ham excel. And he began to lift himself up. Now check this out. To be worshipped as the Almighty. To be worshipped as God. Okay? So I'm going to go into the story. Nimrod did it. Yes, he sure did. Nimrod was also responsible for building the Tower of Babel and was responsible for Babylon. Now, you and I, brothers and sisters, know that we're in the daughter of Babylon. So I'm ecstatic about sharing the information with you. I pray that the Most High, through the Holy Spirit, gives me a spirit of calmness, of understanding, and that He prepares your heart and mind as well to be able to receive it. And you don't have to take my word for it, but we're going to go through the sources of the information that we're bringing out. Okay? So without further ado, the Tower of Babel. I got this online, and I'm particular about sharing the actual source of this, what I'm about to read, because there's other information on this particular source that I want to be careful who I give the people a reference as far as the sources, because you might just be a babe, and there's other things that really go deep that I don't want to open up something to you guys that might lead you the wrong way. So don't touch, Manny. You can't touch that. Now the story, we're going here. It says the Tower of Babel. When we talk about the Tower of Babel really quick, Now we got Nimrod. Nimrod was the Hebrew word. It says H5808. So we knew that he was the son of Ham, an earlier warrior and hunter who founded a kingdom in Mesopotamia. Right? Now let's go into Babel. Babel means, don't play with that. That's Grandpa's. Thank you. Here you go. So Babel. Let's look at Babel. Babel, the Tower of Babel. Babel is an expression not found in the Bible, but used properly for the structure built in the plain of Shinar, as the story is told in Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 9. We're going to go through that today, most high willing. The men of Shinar intended to build a tower that reached to heavens, but the Most High frustrated them by confusing their tongues. That means language. And it says the author of Genesis assumes that before this, the whole human species was a single tribe moving from place to place and speaking one language. Now, we understand that they had an understanding that all the men, because Noah is the progenitor, him and his sons, and Noah would teach his sons righteousness. So he taught Ham, he taught Japheth, and he taught Shem the righteous things. Shem, who was actually Melchizedek, he was a priest and the king of Salem, right? He was a priest of the Most High God. He followed the Most High. So all of the sons of Noah began to actually rebel against the Most High, with the exception of the lineage of Shem. So although we're reading, it says that people, that the author who's saying this, the author of Genesis, we know that they're all one of one tribe. Because there's different tribes in the earth, right? And so the nations were split or made through Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, so the story of Babylon tells this. Also, I wanted to mention to you that the Tower of Babel, it says it was gate of God. A gate of God, right? Now, what gate? What the gate is the gate of the Most High God? Or is it the gate of a God? Because the Bible says there'll be many lords and many gods. So I'm just putting that out there for you. Is there a gate to go into? See, Nimrod was very, very intelligent and very wise. Okay? And so he dabbled in what you would call the occult on the other side of the flood. After the whole earth was wiped out from the wickedness. So let me read the story. The story of Babylon is monumental and of great historical significance. But it, considering the circumstances of the word today, has been demoted to probably one of the most obscure and insignificant events of our ancient history. This important story is rarely mentioned in modern history books, almost intentionally forgotten. I hope you heard about that. So they make a purpose for you. That's why when you ask somebody, what do you know about Nimrod? Most people won't know about him, but what if you come to find out that most of the world is following him through their ideology and their religion? All of them. Okay? Moving on. So they intentionally did this, right? Let me go down here some. It says also, Michelle, are you zooming in where they can see that on the? Can you zoom in on that for me? Or does it not look good?
Oh, I don't know if it's on this camera.
Let me pardon me for 1 second, just so pardon me, everyone. So when you zoom in, let me see here.
Oh, at the top.
Maybe not then. No, yeah, I don't want to mess it up. Okay, like that. We won't mess it up. I'll just read it. I wanted you all to read along and see these words. It says here. Also, when one hears the name Nimrod, many tend to think of some clumsy oaf. Okay? One of little intelligence. In actuality, the Nimrod of old was a mighty leader, the founder of the first great empire of post-flood civilization, the kingdom of Babylon. We're going to tie this in today. You're going to come to see that even after Nimrod. Okay, I won't even give it. I'll just keep reading. I said I was going to do no commentary. The flood of Noah devastated the world Noah once lived in. After the waters receded and Noah and his family left the ark, the Most High commanded the survivors to spread out and fill the earth. Be fruitful and multiply. That's Genesis 9 and 7. Ultimately, the people of the day chose not to obey the Most High. Nearly 200 years after the flood, the descendants of Noah began to multiply in great numbers. Noah's close descendants became the patriarchs of a great number of families who eventually had, how do you pronounce this? It says, Kosed into nations, or they turned into nations. This disbursement would set the stage for the eventual Babylonian Empire and Babylonian religions plural. Okay? Now, Noah's grandson, Cush, was one of these early patriarchs, the one who became a leader of many. He did not want to follow the Most High's commandment. Did you all hear that? Yeah. Now, we know that Cush was the father, as it's going to tell us, of Nimrod. But reading on, he didn't want to follow the Most High's commandment of fill the earth, but strove for the opposite. He wanted to bring all of the people together. He began to unite everyone into one huge nation, thus beginning the unification movement, all centered at the Tower of Babel. It says here, the Bible gives us little information about Cush, Nimrod, and the tower itself, as we read in Genesis 10 and 8. And we're going to go there. Cush was the father of Nimrod, and that's about all. Even though the Bible doesn't give us much more about their individual lives, we do learn from the ancient text that Cush and Nimrod would become legendary throughout the secular pagan world. The Bible does, however, tell us about the beginning of this apostasy. What is apostasy? Apostasy means to stray away. It means a false religion. Okay? It means to go against the Most High. Okay? So this apostasy at where? At the Tower of Babel. Now listen to this. The major rebellion against the Most High. So who was Nimrod? So now you may be able to answer the question. As I mentioned, I'm going to go right back here in 1 second. The question in this lesson is, who was Nimrod and what was he responsible for? You're going to learn it out. Beyond any shadow of a doubt, you'll at least be able to answer who Nimrod was. Okay? He was the son of Cush. He was also renowned being a mighty hunter before the Most High. Okay? But also, he was known to bring all the people together in rebellion. Listen carefully. In rebellion against the Most High God. So could it be, brothers and sisters, that we live in a world today that's actually in rebellion to the Most High God? Only the blessed scriptures would tell us. Now let's continue on. Going right back. As I said I would. So now we know who Nimrod was and what he was known for. It says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. They found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to us, they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. So now when it says to make a name means to get renowned. It's like, be popular. Right. Be famous. Let it be known. Let us make a name for ourselves. Right? It's almost like, someone's known for something. So now we know the name of Nimrod, what he was known for. Okay? We're going to Genesis chapter 10 to read about Genesis 10 and 8. Okay, let's go to the book of Genesis. We're going to the book of Genesis chapter 10. And we'll start at verses 8. And then we'll read down to verses 10. So Genesis 10 and verse 8 says, I'll make it big here for everyone here can see. It reads, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Most High, whereof, listen to this, it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Most High. So he was known that Nimrod, if someone was to go against Nimrod, it's like, listen, when they go to war, they be like Nimrod. It's like if someone was like, I'm using this as an example, if someone was good at basketball or whatever, right? They play basketball and they'd be like Jordan or whoever, or like LeBron James or whoever, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Nimrod was known for being a mighty hunter. And remember, he fought for his brethren. He won many wars and he conquered. Okay? So we're going to get the information of what Nimrod did. And it says, in the beginning of his kingdom was what? Babel. Now we just read in the Zondervan Bible Illustrated Dictionary, Babel or babbler, Babel means this. When you look at babbler, it says here, let's get Babel. Okay, let's read about Babel for one quick second. Now, it says, I'm in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary on page 153 where it talks about Babel or the tower. Now, Babel in the Hebrew, look what it says. I'll make it big for us all here and I'll read out what it says. It is H894, Babel. It means confusion. That is Babylon, including Babylonia, in the Babylonian Empire, Babylon. All right? So let me read what it talks about as Babel. Here it says, the men in Shinar intended to build a tower that reached to the heavens, but the Most High frustrated them by confusing their tongues. I read that part. It says, the event took place not very long after the flood. The remains of a large tower called ziggurats can be found at the sites of many ancient cities in Mesopotamia. These sacred temple towers, this is where you get skyscrapers from, okay? These sacred temple towers were built in the step-like stages of brick and asphalt, usually with a shrine at the top of them, okay? The Tower of Babel was, however, not a temple tower, but simply a tower. Apparently, it says, the first one ever attempted. The ziggurats may have been, imitations of this tower. It is not known for certain whether the ruins of the Tower of Babel are still extant. There are rival claimants for the honor. Okay, so now we get that. Now, I want us to go to the book of. No, I want to read. Before I go there, I want to read more about. Babylon here. And it says this. I'm going back to the source that I pulled up online. It says, the people of the post-flood era began to pursue the same ideological ideas as their ancestors did before the flood. They wanted to find ways to make a name for themselves. These pride-filled people wanted to exemplify themselves and not the Most High. That brings us to today and age. How people worship themselves and adorn themselves. The Bible talks to us about that. In the end times, okay, people will be lovers of themselves and not lovers of the Most High. Okay? It also says, so they wanted to exemplify themselves. And it also says, once again, they intentionally disobeyed. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, the baby's getting a little riled up here, but they intentionally, purposely disobeyed the Most High God. Who was responsible for teaching people this? Nimrod, Cush. They rebelled against the Most High and they taught it. So could we be doing some of these things that they were doing, what we call pre-flood? Not only pre-flood, but even post-flood. And now we're way after the post-flood. Okay? Now look what it says. So they intentionally disobeyed the ways of the Most High and went out on their own. Why? How could these people become so rebellious so quickly? One reason was that many still may have recalled stories of how their ancestors had rebelled against the Most High before the flood and thought highly of their efforts. In other words, remember they said, let us make a name for ourselves. The people before the flood were very proud. Okay? They had, like I said, hidden knowledge. And because of the knowledge that they had, that knowledge made them proud. And the pride puffed them up. The Bible says the Most High resists the proud. Okay? He hates an arrogant look. Right? Look what else it says. So, because of that, they thought highly of their efforts. Many of these people began to care more about their ancestors than they did about the Most High. Now, I just posed a question to everyone here in last night. I said, if the Most High tells you and I to do something, and let's say we go out and share the word of the Most High, and the word of the Most High, to the people in this world in today's age who don't really know the Most High or of the Most High, and they say, well, that's rude. How could the Most High how could the Bible condemn my lifestyle? If a man lay with a man or a woman lay with a woman, or, a woman be promiscuous or a man be a whoremonger. And the Bible says none of those people, or an idolater. That means the want of gain and greediness, and also worshiping false gods. And the Most High, the Bible condemns that. The word of the Most High condemns that. And we tell them about this, and we just tell the truth. Should we become respecters of the way one may feel or take it? Or should we really stand for the word of the Most High God and live our life as an example? Or should we say, well, that person might get offended, so I better not say nothing. I better, how you say it? Sugarcoat this a little bit. Let me read it again. It says here, and though they thought highly of their efforts, many of these same people began to care more about their ancestors than they did about the Most High. They also seemed more concerned for their own livelihood than society at large. Now, what do we mean by society? We're talking about a world. Do you know that the word world, W-O-R-L-D, means society? And do you know that in the world that we live in today, if we're not concerned, so by us telling you the truth about the Most High God, how he says to be holy, for he is holy, if you go against that, by me telling you the truth, I'm preserving myself. Because if you take heed to it, and you liken to follow the commandments of the Most High, and you fall in love with the Most High, and you teach your household to do it, then together we can be in unison and worship the true living God, as opposed to worshiping idols and false gods who the Most High hates and abhors, who will ultimately be destroyed. And listen to this, eradicated from the earth. They're still mad about it. They're still mad about it. Those who were wiped out, they're mad about it, brothers and sisters. So let me read on. I don't want to go on a long rant. So we see what happened, right? They begin to care more about their own livelihood and instead of the society, and making it a God-fearing society. Remember, the book of Hosea 4, chapter 1, tells us that because there's no fear of the Most High God in the land, blood touches blood. And people go about lying and cheating and stealing and killing. Okay? Because of these things. Now, let me finish reading on. So, what happens here, it soon became all about them. So, never mind. And the way that I can think of this, people always say, well, it ain't my house. It ain't happening to me. Right? Sooner or later, all the evils that are happening or the bad things that are happening, it's going to be at your doorstep. And if you don't take heed to it, brothers and sisters, like I said earlier today before we came on camera, this world, the world that we live in, this Babylonian Western world culture that we live in, has desensitized us from the true principles and the laws and commandments of the Most High God. They put up a thing that this grace and this facade that you can't say anything and no one can judge me. Well, if you let that stuff go, now it's the law of the land that man can marry man and woman can marry woman. And not only that, children are oppressing the parents, and the parents, can't say anything. If they say anything, the children to rise up and beat them down. I mean, this is the stuff that's going on. The children to kill the parents, parents killing the children. You tell me that we're not living in a world that's out of order right now. All of this happened back then, and that's why the flood came, where the Most High wiped them out. And Nimrod was responsible for the rebellion. Okay, so let me go on now. So, and what they do, so it was all about them. And where did they get the fuel for their self-absorbed fire? Where did they get it from? It says it right here. Cush and Nimrod. Of course. They're also the source of every religion on this earth. Religion. Because the Most High did not give us religion. He gave us a way of life. He gave us a culture. Okay? So now, in layman's terms, when you say religion, if you want to say the true religion, if you're just speaking of the way of the Israelites, now you have to understand that Israelites followed them. Okay, the ones that went off. The Greeks followed them. The Babylonians followed them. Right? Everyone followed them. Okay? Am I missing? The Persians followed them. He became mighty and got renowned in the earth. Now, reading on, it says the leaders of this movement wanted the people to make sure that if the Most High ever became angry at them again, he would not be able to sweep them away by a flood, as he did earlier. So when you think of those skyscrapers, every skyscraper, because there was an ordinance given amongst the children of Israel that they would not build anything over 3 stories tall. Okay? And so nowadays we look at things and we see the skyscrapers going up to the sky, all back from the Tower of Babel. Right? So, moving on, it says he would not be able to sweep them away by a flood, as he did earlier. This was a major reason for the building of this tower, pride-filled rebellion. According to a variety of ancient texts, the people of Babel, under Cush command, were attempting to build a structure so high that they would never have to worry, let me move this up, about any judgment. This so-called, what they say, the so-called Most High, or the so-called God, might have in store for them. So they said, well, listen, we'll build something so tall, the Most High can never take us off the earth again. And then we were saying that before we came on, if the Most High wanted to, now we know this to be true because, listen, brothers and sisters, the Bible makes it clear to us that the Most High will make new heavens and a new earth. So we got to stay in the word of the Most High. His word will be forever. And if his word is in you, that's what's going to live. That's what's going to be steadfast. So moving on, it says they would never have to worry about a judgment that comes from the Most High on them. On top of it, they even wanted to be able to climb up this tower all the way to heaven and be able to destroy the Most High with their swinging swords. Okay? Now, let's go read about that for a second. I'm going to pause right here. Let us go to the book of Genesis chapter 11, and let's read verses 1 through 9. And then we're going to go right back where we left off at, speaking about the story in the Tower of Babel. Genesis 9, verses 1. It says, and the Most High blessed Noah and his sons. And he said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. In the fear of you, in the dread of you, shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that move upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. That's salvation. That's dominion. Salvation means dominion. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green, how do you say that? Herb. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, herb. Okay. Have I given you all things, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. So you're not to eat anything with blood in it. Okay? Verses 5. And surely your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of every beast, will I require it at the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. A precept to that would be Numbers 35 in verses 33, if I'm correct, where it says, when blood is on the land, it defiles the land, and the only way to cleanse it is by those who shed the blood, their blood also must be spilled. But that's by the hands of the Most High. Okay? Now moving on. It says, whoso sheddeth man blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of the Most High made he man, in you, verse 7, be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein. Verse 8, and the Most High spake unto Noah and his sons. So the Most High spoke to, who was his sons? Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And so what would they do? They would tell this the same way you and I tell our sons and daughters, and we warn them. Why? Because they go out into a society in a world where also where it's law, where, you know, the laws of the Most High God are intentionally not spoken of or not being upheld. Why? Because they say, well, listen, it goes against us. There's a judgment against us for acting this way. Okay? Moving on. It says here, so the Most High spake unto Noah and his sons with him, saying, verse 9, and I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed. Okay? And with your seed. So the Most High, meaning that those who keep the Most High's commandments, and we know ultimately that seed had to be preserved. And ultimately it was Yeshua. Okay? So let's go back to where we were reading at about the Tower of Babel. And I want to leave off on, you just touched it.
Oh no.
Oh no. Wait a minute.
It looks like it's stuck in between papers or something.
Yeah, don't do that,
Just
man.
erase the letter U.
Now where was I? Okay, I'm sorry. We were way. Okay, 1 second. Oh, okay, here we go. So, what they wanted to do? Okay, so basically what they did on top of it, they even wanted to be able to climb up this tower all the way to heaven and be able to fight against the Most High. So they thought, with their swinging swords. Their own power, at least in their own mind, was in their unity. So in unity, in one unison, they were all in agreement to fight against the Most High, right? It goes on and says, their desire for vengeance became so strong that nothing, at least in their minds, was going to stop them. Their resolve for freedom, it may be a little hard to understand why these people would deviate from the Most High's righteousness so quickly. How is that? It also says, but the more we understand how they lived in the ideological ways they quickly begin to follow, the more it began to make sense. As always, the Most High had a perfect plan to thwart these rebellious ways. Now let's read on. It says, and the Most High came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men, this is Genesis 11, 5 through 9. Okay, so he came down to see the city that the men had built. And the Most High said, behold, the people is one, and they all have one language. So they all were communicating under the same language. In this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them. Okay. Nothing will be restrained from them, which they had imagined to do. So it says, the Most High says, let us go down and there confound their language, that they might not understand one another's speech. So the Most High scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the whole earth. And they left off to build the city. Okay, so they were building the city up the Most High, brought 70 angels and confounded their languages so that they could not understand and communicate to build and fight against the Most High, right? It goes on and says, so they were spread abroad the whole earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore, the name of it was called Babel, because the Most High did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Most High scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Genesis 11, 5 through 9. Now, I jumped up somewhere. I'm sorry. Why did you do that so fast? Okay, Marie some more. The stage of establishment of the most employs power. Okay, now it says here, this is about as far as the Bible goes into it. But what happened around this time? Now, of course, brothers and sisters, we have those other records in the book of Jasher. And I'm going to mention those here briefly. We're going to go into some of these records to see what they were doing. Okay, we're going to see about Nimrod's rule, how he ruled, and the wickedness that he how would you say, he multiplied on the face of the earth. Okay, so now it says, after the Most High confused the people's languages, nobody could really understand anyone else around them. In the construction of the tower came to a grinding halt. It says, Cush, their former leader, was forced to give up this tower building project and hung his head in disgrace. The groups of families, meaning nations, once united here, were now forced to scatter abroad and go back into their own respective areas. Okay? But what did they do? What did they do, brothers and sisters? Everything that they had there, this is why there's resemblance in all of these different cultures where they have, a mother God, a father God, and a son God. Right? Because they all, at one point, followed the same practice. So what you would call Elam, or the children of the East, the Hindus, or whatever the case is, what you would call, they have similarities that you have in Roman Catholicism, that they have in the worship of the way that the Greeks worship. So they have these same similarities, but their languages now, they're just doing it in their own languages. That's why there's a story of a great flood that came. They all carry and have this story of the great flood, because at one point, they all were under one language. They were different nations, right? But they were under one language. So they took it back to their respective area, and guess what they did, brothers and sisters? They kept following idol worship. They kept worshiping the gods. They continued to rebel against the Most High, right? Now, let's read it now. Okay, so these groups or these nations of people, they did this just as the Most High did. He confounded their languages, right? So they went to their own respective areas and they had their own languages, just as the Most High intended. Even though they were forced to separate, look, it says the people still wanted to retain their unity of thought that they learned at the tower, amongst other rebellious ways. Did you hear that? So all the religions rebel against the Most High. It says, as some of these established states form into empires, the people continue the influence and knowledge that they acquired from Cush and Nimrod into their own ways of life. So it all goes back to Babylon or Mesopotamia, ancient Babylon, right? And look what else it says. It says, although most people gave up on finishing this Tower of Babel project, some continued on in the same vicinity with another endeavor, the completion of a city. No longer did they concentrate on the Tower of Babel. They now had a city of which they were to finish, a city with a new name. And that name was Babylon. Moving on. The word Babylon, as we read there, simply means confusion, named after the confusion which resulted from the Most High changing the languages of the people there. So even though Cush had been disgraced here, he would still regain his statue. He kept his high esteem. He stayed proud or being lifted up amongst the people because of his once powerful position. Cush's son Nimrod also kept his esteem and stature. He would go on to take over the reins of the establishment of the city of Babylon through this. Nimrod would amplify the dignity and respect of even the scattered people around him. So he would even regain their respect. He would take this entire tower building rebellion of Cush one step further. Now listen to this. It says the Bible only mentions him in a couple of verses. All right? In those couple of verses we read was in Genesis 10 and 8. It says, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Most High. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech, if I'm pronouncing it right, and Akkad, and Canaan, in the land of Shinar. That's Genesis 10, verses 8 through 10. It's also mentioned in Micah chapter 5, verses 1. Now, it goes on and says, Nimrod was the mighty one of the post-flood world, also known as the subduer of leopards. He earned his fame through conquering large wild animals. Okay, we're going to come to find out. Also, Esau, if you didn't know, Esau, who actually sprung out of Shem, okay, through Isaac, okay, took out Nimrod. Okay, Nimrod. We're going to go into these stories. Nimrod had a prince whose name was Terah, and Terah was he was a high esteemed prince in Nimrod's wicked kingdom. Now, who was Terah or Terah? Terah or Terah was the father of Abram, who the Most High changed to the name of Abraham. So these particular individuals that we're going to learn about, we would see their attributes that they carried. We'll see if they were righteous or if they were rebellious. Okay, so moving on, what happens was Nimrod, he conquered large animals. He was very strong. It says a giant in both name and in stature. Okay, some people even say that he had Nephilim blood in him. That's stated. I'm not saying that he does or he doesn't, but one thing we know, and without telling, through the story, you're going to come to find out that he took the garments that was prepared for Adam and Eve. Okay, he took those because Adam and Eve through Enoch. Enoch had it. Enoch passed it down to Methuselah. Methuselah to Noah. Noah to his son Shem. Okay, well, those garments end up getting into the hands of Nimrod. So moving on, it goes on and says that he was very strong, a giant in both name and in stature. Eventually, after conquering all the dangerous animals around him, he turned his powerful sights toward conquering people. Eventually, Nimrod began the first empire of the post-flood world, the Assyrian Babylonian Empire. Nimrod brought the original grandeur of the tower building project into his new political system of governmental rule. And on top of it, he used theologies. What is theologies? The word theology means the understanding of God, of the Most High, that he and his father had taught. So they taught theologies, right? Him and his father had taught into forming a religious, did you hear that? A religious system of this same foundation. So they would teach a way. Now we know when they're talking about religion, that means what they're stating worship or a set of practices where you esteem and give honor. That should be only to the Most High towards an individual meaning him, right? So now he taught this. This is to worship also idols. Now listen to this. So his new political system of governmental rule, and on top of it, he used theologies that he and his father had taught him to formulate a religious system of the same foundation. Now, from these systems of of politics and religion, his authority and control over people was about to take hold on a grand scale. Cush and Nimrod were even known for their ability to channel or communicating with those of the spiritual world. Did you get that? They practiced divination, witchcraft, sorcery. They were good at it. So that's where you get the beginning of the occult on the other side of the flood. The Most High told us not to do any of those things. Don't delve into sorcery. Don't delve into necromancy. Okay, that means conjuring up the dead, right? Well, I want to see about someone that passed on, my dearly departed loved one. We're not to do that. Or divination. Divination meaning using spells and demonic things to use what they would call dark knowledge. Okay, the Most High said we're not. This stuff exists. Nowadays, this is the stuff that's popular. They make it on games like Ouija board and there's other ones that are out there that they use, and they put it into television shows. They put it into the cartoons. Okay, all the while, see, brothers and sisters, we think that we live in a society that's for our turn, and it's not. They aim it at the children. They put it into things with SpongeBob, the Disney Channel, all of it. It's all satanic. So this stuff was taught back from Nimrod. This is the origin of it. Then you begin to wake up and say, you wake up and smell the coffee one day and say, wait, everything is evil. It's evil all around us. So let's read more about it. This is how they control people. This is why they must aim at the children. Get them while they're young, raise them up in it, and what will they do? They'll keep the cycle or their rule going. But we as the children of light are here to break that. We're breaking their dominion. We're pulling down those strongholds. We're the children of light, and we're speaking of the things that the Most High God told his children. There were only one people in the earth who was not doing that thing. And understand what Nimrod did in Mesopotamia. Through this divination, they believed in polytheism, meaning the belief of many gods. Israelites, not only just Israelites, but Shem and Noah and Methuselah and Enoch and Seth and righteous Abel and Adam, they believe in the belief, which you call monotheism, the belief of one power or one God, the true God, the living God, right? So let's go on. Is it interesting so far to you all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now moving on. Nimrod, this is the beginning of this stuff. And today, even when we go to watch movies and be entertained, this is why we have to stay prayed up. Because when you let your guard down and you become drunk off of Babylon's wine, you begin to celebrate. Remember, the Most High is a jealous God. The Most High told his sons and daughters, do not do the things that the other nations do. Do not do what Nimrod and the people of his kingdom did. Do not do that. And I've gone on the record and said that, guess what? Israelites begin to do it. Not all of them, but majority of them did. So will you be a part of the remnant who keep the Most High's commandment and stand for truth and light? So reading on, it says, so his authority and control over people, it came to a grand scale. Now, not only did they have the ability to channel or communicate with the spiritual world, in some schools of thought, the spirits they communicated with were actually considered the dead spirits of their antediluvian ancestors. See that? Their antediluvian ancestors. That's divination. That's necromancy. We're not to do that. Means one that conjures up a spirit. I want to see. Where's my dearly beloved departed? How are they doing in the underworld? They did it in Egypt, right? They did it in all of these cultures. But now you see where it came from. They were all there under one ideology. They were one. And the Bible, the record of the Bible is true. It speaks of it. So now, let's go on. So they actually conjure up and communicate it, and they believed that this was the dead spirits of their antediluvian ancestors. Regardless from these acts of communications, the two were able to acquire a great deal of occult knowledge. What two? Cush and Nimrod. Now, not only that, I'm gonna just take a little. Let me take a side note, because the Bible, not the extra biblical book in the book of Jasher, and I have it right here. Let me pull this up, and I want to read this to you. And we're going to go to this record. We said 2 hours, right? So we're going to go to 6. We got about 40 more minutes. In the book of, I got it highlighted right here. Did it stop?
No.
Where's it at? Oh, here it is. In the book of Jasher, chapter, if I'm not mistaken, chapter 11, in verses, I'll read verse 7 and 8, then I'm going right back to that. We're going to get to read about Nimrod's kingdom. It says, and notwithstanding, from verse 7, I'm in the book of Jasher, chapter 11, verses 7. That's the source. And notwithstanding this, Nimrod did not. He did not. That means he did not repent. He did not return to the Most High. And he continued in wickedness. Listen to this. In teaching wickedness to the sons of man. And Mardon, his son, was worse than his father, and continued and to add to the abominations of his father. Okay? And he caused, listen to this, it says, and he caused the sons of men to sin. Therefore, it is said, this is where the saying comes from the wicked goeth forth wickedness. So what did he do? He taught him necromancy. He taught him divination. He taught him hidden knowledge. And this is where some of your top, listen to this, your business moguls, your favorite entertainers, your top athletes, okay, those who are the politicians that rule this earth, they know this, brothers and sisters. They know it. This is where they get the information from. And you say, well, how is this so successful? Right? This is what they're delving into. Okay? This is what's being taught. This is the hidden knowledge. Okay? Now, moving on. I was at, going back to the story of Babel and Nimrod's wickedness, how they were channeling what you would call demon and spirit channeling. It says, those two were able to acquire a great deal of occult knowledge, which allowed the ability to accomplish such great feats. In other words, this is how they accomplished their rule and dominion over the sons of men. Okay? As the construction of the tower, just as their pre-flood ancestors did, Nimrod and Cush were also able to make a name for themselves. See that? And notice how people make a name for themselves today. If those who were like, from the hood or whatever the case is, they want to be known for being bounded, right? Someone want to be known for having paper or whatever the case is, right? So-and-so, they balling. They known for this. So-and-so, okay, you mess with them, they'll take your top off. They're making a name for themselves. Now, not only that, think about the daughter of Babylon. She become the hammer of the whole earth. It's known for setting up bases over all the 7 continents of the world, right? Known for conquering. So Nimrod was a conqueror. He was going about conquering, right? And how did he do it? He did it through the witchcraft and sorcery, all right? Now, moving on, it says, so just as the pre-flood ancestors did, Nimrod and Cush were also able to make their names for themselves. In fact, it goes on to say, move this up. Uh-oh, jumped up too far. It jumped that far? Where did in fact go? 1 second. I pressed it to... Okay, I read that. I don't know why I jumped up that far. Okay, in fact. I was at in fact. Okay. Nimrod, in fact, okay, where's that? The east. Okay, in fact, the scattered people of their era began to admire them. Hence, celebrities, people who are just, think about like warriors and stuff, right? People look at like of course we learned about Thor, right? How Thor was put up, how they put their gods up. So this is what they would do. They would put their people up and be people as renowned. So look what it says. They begin to be admired in their position so much that they started to revere them as gods. Cush and Nimrod became so popular, their likeness were incorporated into many facets of empirical culture since then. Cush, for example, also became known as Thoth, Hermes, and Mercury. Nimrod came to be known under the names Jupiter, Osiris, etc. The Bible may even equate them to gods such as Baal, or Moradok. Okay, that's in the book of Judges, chapter 6, verses 25, and it says in 8. Okay, and then Jeremiah 50:2. In the end, the religious foundations of monotheism, there being one and only one true power, was about to be challenged. So Nimrod introduced and made all of those sons. Remember they told the Most High said to multiply? He began to be a ruler and mighty one. And he taught the men wickedness. This same stuff is being taught in the end time today. That's the importance of you and I knowing the truth. As the Bible, John 8:32 says, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. If you don't really know the truth, then you still, you may be ignorantly being taken by one of these false religions. Revelations chapter 12 and verse 9, if I'm not mistaken, says the devil deceived the whole world. How did he do it? Through this. He used his court. He used one of his little underlings, his minions, Nimrod, to do it. Okay? Now let's move on. And Nimrod, just for the record, Nimrod he was a person of melanated skin tone. Okay? The Cushites were people that were a dark race. Okay? So it's not about this wasn't a Caucasian man. This man some people say he was the first black king. But we know before that, even from Adam, if you think about it, if you use common sense, remember I said we have common sense. Adam was made from the dirt of the ground. So Adam was a man of color. So the point being, what I'm saying is that this man right here was very, very, very evil and very wicked. He was responsible for having the patriarch, our forefather, Abraham, thrown in a furnace of fire. And the Most High saved him from the furnace of fire. This is what Nimrod would do. He was wicked. Okay? So now moving on, it says, so once again, the Most High engaged in a plan to upstart this new system So once again, the Most High engaged in a plan to upstart this new system of apostate religious belief. In other words, to uproot and pull it down. He was going to pull it down. Why does it keep doing that? Man. Okay, now we're going in. So the Most High was going to tear it down. Now we're going into the second part of the legacy of Nimrod, and this actually leads us to Esau. Okay, Esau. This is the legacy of Nimrod. Let's read. It says, and after the flood, beyond the time of Abraham, there was another story extremely important to the legacy of Babylon. Okay, and we're gonna do some backtracking to go in to read about Nimrod's rule. But now this also pertains to how Esau, who is Esau? Esau is a fraternal twin means not of the same, they don't look alike. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So Esau was the fraternal twin of Yaakov or Jacob or Jacob, right? And so he was also, one of his blessings, or the blessing that was given to him was, he was the elder brother. But because the Most High chose Jacob to bring his lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel through, and the Most High being all-knowing in his foreknowledge, he chose Jacob, and he said that Esau would serve, the elder would serve the younger brother. Nonetheless, they were still brothers. And listen to this. They loved each other to an extent, but guess what happened? Anger. Through anger and bitterness, this is why Cain killed Abel. And this is why Esau took on the hatred and anger to want to persecute his brother. And he swore, he made a pact to have anger with he said he would have vengeance, because he said that Jacob means a usurp. If I'm pronouncing it right, usurp. That means that he would uproot. And some people say that Jacob means trickster. So he pulled a trick. He said, well, he pulled a trick, and because why? The promises should always go to the eldest son. But this is showing you it's not by man's doing, not by might, not by strength, right? Not by your wisdom, but through the Most High God. This is how we'll prevail, through the Most High. So I'm only interested in biblical truth. Now, let me read on. Don't bang on the door, man. So after the flood, beyond the time of Abraham, there was another story extremely important to the legacy of Babylon. We're going to read about Esau now. Let's go back to the time right after the flood and see what unfolded. We know from other flood survivors, there probably were other groups of people and maybe even offsprings with angelic blood, right? Who survived Noah's flood. There's one tale there's a tale that it says that one of the giants held on to the ark and made it to the other side of the flood. We know that there were giants on the other side of the flood because we read in the book of Joshua and the book of Deuteronomy that Moses, that they did great, what you would call exploits for the Most High. That there were giants in the land in that time. So how they got there, I can't say per se, but we know that there were giants post-flood in the land. Some people say that maybe one of the daughters of the wives of, not Shem, because Shem, their lineage had to be pure, from Ham or Japheth had Nephilim blood in them. That's another saying. I don't know if you all heard this in your vocation. This may be the first time that you heard this. But this is not to make confusion, but to show that the Bible is true. The Bible is absolutely correct. Now look what it says. So there were other people who survived the flood. Okay? And it goes on and says, as well, one of Noah's sons, Shem, listen to this. He was appointed by the Most High Ahia to carry on the holy seed of Adam. Eventually, and you get that when you go into the book of Luke, when you look at the genealogy of Yeshua, okay? And I believe it's, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on it. I think the genealogy, how do you say it? The lineage or genealogy of Yeshua, I believe it's chapter 3 or chapter 2. I could be wrong. But it's in the book of Luke, one of those first chapters where it talks about the genealogy. And it says, and then also in the book of Matthew chapter 1, it talks about the genealogy. But it goes all the way from Shem. It mentions Shem's name. It mentions Seth. It mentions Jared. Okay, it mentions the righteous seed all the way down to Yeshua. So moving on, Shem was appointed. We got about 27 more minutes. And like I said, we're going to go 2 hours. At 6 o'clock, we're going to end it and wish you all a high speed. And then we'll pick up. We'll pick up Monday evening at 6 o'clock, if it be the Most High's will. So we pray that if anyone that sees this video online would be interested in, maybe chiming into the discussion or hearing or being gathered with brothers and sisters of like mind who gather together, send a message to us, comment on the video, or you can send an email to Holy Armor Ministries gmail.com, and we'll provide you that information how to link in with us on Monday nights at 6 o'clock. Okay, because we want to continue to build and allow us to continue to grow, so our vocation continue to be builded up. So now it says that Shem was appointed by the Most High to carry the holy seed of Adam, eventually to Yeshua HaMashiach, one of Shem's descendants. Abraham would become a very famous person in the Bible, the father of many nations. Abraham had a son, Isaac. Isaac had two twin sons, Jacob and Esau. Jacob would go on to have a very special position. In regards to this holy bloodline, he would be the one the Most High would rename Israel. So even though Jacob meant, some says trickster, or mean Yusuf, supplanter, means supplanter. That means to take someone out, right? The Most High changed Jacob's name to what? Israel, or Yasharallah, meaning a prince amongst the power. That means the Most High chose Jacob, okay? Or chose Israel. Now, it says here, we know that Israel is the father of the Israelites, right? At whom, not making it about genealogy, whom I happen to be one, and most of you may be one of. So moving on, it goes on and says, at the time of their birth, Esau supposedly came out of his mother's womb. First, according to the ancients, the firstborn son was of a special family significance, right? What is the firstborn supposed to get? Does anyone know?
The inheritance.
We know it. The firstborn is supposed to get the inheritance. So, the Bible says Isaac, who was the son of Abraham, that he loved Esau. Matter of fact, he favored him. Rebecca. Yeah, Rebecca. If I'm not mistaken, Rebecca, because Rachel was Jacob's. Yeah, Rachel was Jacob's wife. So Rebecca favored Jacob. Okay, so as the story goes, it says the firstborn son was a special family of special significance. He retained a number of privileges, and of course, like we just read, he would have the right to his father's inheritance. Okay? As Esau was coming out of his mother, out of her womb, Jacob was said to have reached his arm out of the womb and grabbed Esau's leg, possibly signifying that Jacob wanted this birthright as well, and that they were going to fight for it in years to come. That's the book of Genesis. You can go read about that in the book of Genesis 25, verses 24 through 26. Moving on. It says, as we've assumed, Jacob and Esau didn't get along. The two never really saw anything eye to eye. Okay? The interesting thing about this whole story is not only later in their life, that's how it was. Okay? There was enmity between them. Why? Because of the Most High having favor towards one, even in the world today. If the Most High favors this person more than me, then you might feel a certain way about it. And that's how people feel today when you say that you're God's chosen people. You're like, you're God's chosen people? They get upset about that. What was that? Are we insignificant? So think about it. So it goes on, it says the interesting thing about this whole story is that not only Jacob's descendants go on to form a very important nation, all right, they become the nation of Israel, Esau's descendants would also go on to form a very powerful empire. Their battle, it seems, would never end. So their rule would never end. So in order to discover an important piece of mystery Babylon, because we're talking about Babylon, and Esau played a role in Babylon. Esau was the one who took Nimrod's head off. We're going to read about this. So he took that power. And when we go into the scripture, Esau sold his birthright to Jacob. So it goes on and says, we may need to go back in time a couple hundred years to revisit the times of Nimrod himself, there are a variety of extra biblical accounts which say that Nimrod once confronted Abraham. Yes, Abraham, his father Terah, gave up Abraham. When Abraham was born, the signs in the celestials, meaning in the heavens, there was a great big star that chased off all of the other 4 smaller stars, which meaning of the kingdoms. What that was told from Nimrod, his high people. Remember, Terah was wicked, so Terah was having a party at his house. And on the night that Abraham was to be born, there was a great sign in the heavens, and that sign was none other than that son that Terah was going to have. Now remember, that came from the lineage of Shem, from Eber to Peleg, and all the way down to Abraham, right? And from Abraham to Isaac, to Jacob, who was called Israel, to the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, that sign in the heavens, it displayed that Nimrod's kingdom, listen carefully, Nimrod's kingdom would be took out none other by than who? The woman's seed. The woman is Israel. The woman is Israel. Israel is who? Israel was the name of Jacob. So what would Nimrod do?
Can you repeat that last statement?
Yes, ma'am. I said that. You grab something to drink while I'm doing it. I said that on the night that Abraham was born, we're going to read about these things too. I'm just discussing it. The night that Abraham was born, there was a big sign in the heavens, and Nimrod's men, his princes, were over at Terah's house, and Terah's wife was getting ready to have Abraham. And so when they seen this big phenomenon in the heavens, now what were they? They were stargazers. They were looking at the stars in the heaven. They were astrologers. They did astronomy and all that stuff, right? What was displayed in the heaven was none other than the night that Abraham was being born, that son, which was Abraham, was going to take out Nimrod's kingdom, eradicate it from the earth. So I said, what would Nimrod do? Nimrod, to try to preserve his kingdom and his rule, right? What would he do? Want to take that baby out. He would want to take that baby out, and he actually ordered it. He said, bring me that baby. And Terah was so in love with the baby, his son, he defied the king, and he gave him, it's gruesome what happened. And we'll read about that in the book of Jasher. We have those. So that's what I was talking about. So let's go on. Let's read more. It says, so we need to revisit the time of Nimrod himself. There are a variety of extra biblical accounts which say that Nimrod once confronted Abraham, Jacob's grandfather. Okay, and we will read about that in the book of Jasher. He was even said to have thrown Abraham, I just said that, into a fiery furnace because he would not worship his idols. So Abraham was a righteous man. He would not bow down to this worship that Nimrod got from his father, the wickedness, right? And the wickedness that he would taught. He said Abraham would only serve the true living power. That's why he was called the friend of the Most High. How beautiful, right? It goes on to say, but an angel interceded and saved Abraham from the burning and the flames. Nimrod was so amazed that he reportedly sent Abraham on his way and gave him great riches. They feared Abraham because the Most High God was with them, as well as his own freedom. But the confrontation between the family of Nimrod and the family of Abraham was far from over. Now, this clashing of virtual Babylon and people of Adam's seed would continue on beyond Nimrod, beyond Abraham, even unto this day, even the day that we're in. It's going on. Okay? This is what you need to understand. And through this, through this lesson, and through us bringing it out, we pray the Most High cover us and give us the boldness, give us the understanding to say it in a say it in a meaningful way that people would be edified, that their ears would be open. Okay, so it goes on and says, according to a number of ancient sources, Nimrod wore clothes which seemed to have supernatural, or what people would say today, magical properties. These clothes were said to have been the clothes of Adam himself, clothes of which the Most High made for him as soon as he realized that he was walking naked in the garden. Okay, that's back in Genesis. Adam later on reportedly gave them to his son Seth, who passed them down through future generations. They eventually landed with Noah. I said this. And through Noah, they eventually found their way into Nimrod's hand. What would happen, Ham's son, Cain, okay? He had a son named Cain, or Canaan, if I'm not mistaken. He went in there and took those clothes from Noah. Okay? He took them from him. And Cush ended up getting those clothes. And when Cush died on, he gave it to his son, Nimrod. Now you're going to come to find out, check this out, that Esau took those clothes. Okay, I won't give it up. Let me continue reading. Now, it says, through Noah, they eventually found their way into Nimrod's hand. We got about 14 more minutes, brothers and sisters, okay? And then we'll have to wish you a higher speed, and we'll pick up on this, Most High willing, we'll pick up on this Monday evening.
Monday night at 6 on Facebook Live here with Veronica Pearson. God bless you.
Yes, I'm on. Okay. So it says, now it says, when Adam wore these clothes, all of the animals around him reportedly prostrated themselves in front of him in obedience. Isn't that powerful? Remember that Adam had the preeminence at one point. And the devil tried to deceive our forefather Adam. But he did not, brothers and sisters. Listen, Adam fought against the devil. The devil was so tricky and sneaky, and he did it in every generation that he kept persecuted the woman's seed. Try to trick them to make them think that they were following the Most High God, when really it was none other than Satan himself. So now look at this. Nimrod understood that he could wear these same clothes. Animals would do the same thing around him. This probably could be one of the reasons he was said to be a mighty hunter of old. Moving on. And Cush begat Nimrod, like it told us in Genesis 10 and 8. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. Apparently, Nimrod discovered the clothes would have the same effect on people or mankind, or as they say, human beings. And human beings mean the hue of man, okay? Which allowed him easy rule over anyone he came up against. But we already know from origins of Babylon too that Nimrod's rule would not last for too long. After his uncle Shem killed him. And they say Shem killed him. Now think about this for a second. When it says Shem, who came through the loins of Shem? Think about this. Who came from Shem? Eventually, Abraham. Eventually, even Esau. And some people, they hate it. Oh, Esau's not my brother. Like you have some people who might be on this hype. And I'm not saying this I'm not saying this in a way to be contentious with someone because they believe that all the tribes of Israel are black. If you believe that, you can believe that. Okay? What I do personally is just strive for righteousness. But Esau, who we know to be today as the Caucasian man, Okay? When you read and you follow the lineage, and some people say, no, Esau was black. Okay? If that's what you want to believe, you can believe that. But having the correct understanding, and through time, these are lessons that if it be the Most High will, I'll delve into some of these things, through prayer and fasting, because I've studied them. Okay? And I don't claim to know it all, only through prayer and fasting. Listen to this. Sending praises up to the Most High. Because the only way that I can bring any understanding and be used as a vessel is if the Most High give the increase. All right? So other than that, everything that I'm saying to you would sound like mumble jumble and you'll be confused. But the Most High is not the author of confusion. So let me move on. So we know that according to the book of Jasher, and I had it with chapter, that Esau actually killed Nimrod. Okay? So it goes on and says, we also know that Semiramis had a child. Semiramis has had a child. A child she called Nimrod. Okay? Reborn. So this Nimrod name, positionally, bless you, entitled, could have been taken from then on by subsequent rulers of these areas to equate themselves with the first Nimrod, listen to this, in his God-like status. Moving on. One day, one of these subsequent Nimrods, they said, went hunting. In other words, no, Nimrod went hunting, okay? And because he was now in power and he used the power to hunt, Jacob's brother Esau also was a hunter. Esau was a hunter, okay? And knew about the clothes. That's why his father, Jacob, loved him. He would bring home food and he would cook it. Okay, and we'll read that. We'll read about, through this lesson, through time, we'll read about Jacob and Esau so it'll give you more understanding. And the understanding is not to form a hatred towards anyone or, to take vengeance up for yourself, but it's really to have an understanding to know that when you have a solid biblical foundation and understanding to where you're able to rightfully divide the word of truth, okay? And not be tossed to and fro, all right? So, as it goes on, it says, Esau also was a hunter and knew about the clothes, okay? It says, so Esau had a plot against had a plot against Nimrod. Long story short, we should go and read that right now.
Can you hold that part till Monday night?
About reading about how Esau had it?
Yeah, because I think that's a good, interesting part right there, bringing out what Esau did. But if you could save it for tomorrow night, I know it's good information because some more things I want you to bring out. You brought out a whole lot of good information today, and I'm hoping that those that's listening in is really tuning in to what you're saying. Why God had to choose a people to come through. Yeah. And I'm hoping they understand because of what Nimrod has so much influence on the people in that day till his influence yet reigns today.
That's right. That's right. Well, if it be the will of the Most High, like I said, I always move in the spirit. We can make a note of that. So I won't have time to go into it right now. So that'd be okay. We can pick up right there. Let me finish reading the story that I have here. So just make a side note and just remind me that Monday night we'll pick up and we'll read that story about how Esau was hunting, and we'll go into the blessings that was given to Jacob, and how Esau. It's going to explain it. How Esau was actually out on the hunt, and I mean, you by following this, it's going to lead right into it. So you really didn't have to say it because the way the story goes and the way the understanding of what happened chronologically, it's going to fall right into what you're asking. So yeah, that won't be no problem at all. So I'm going to finish reading on this. It says, so what happened was waiting for this. So Esau was waiting, right, to plot against Nimrod, waiting for the time that he would basically catch him slipping. Okay. Now, what he did is he was in the field and he ambushed him. After a long fight, Esau eventually killed Nimrod. That's how Shem took him out. That's how Abraham took him out. As we were reading or as I was telling you about that story, about when Abraham was born on that night, that there was a great, in the heavens, there was a big sign in the heavens where this big star chased off the 4 little stars to the corners of the earth and ate them up. Okay? So in other words, he uprooted or pulled down their dominion. Okay? Also it says, he killed him and then he took his clothes. They now were in Esau's possession. It was a rough ambush. Esau had to not only kill this Nimrod, and listen to this, we got 5 more minutes, but he had to fight off of a couple of Nimrod's mighty men. Okay? Esau was absolutely exhausted. He almost died in that fight. Esau was valiant. He was ruthless. That was the blessing that was given to him, and we'll go into that Monday night. He wasn't no joke. He'll take your top off, right? So it says here, Esau had not only killed Nimrod, but he had to fight off his bodyguards. Esau was absolutely exhausted from the struggle. So he ran all the way home to the place where Jacob was staying. Once he got to Jacob, he begged him for something to eat. And so this leads us to the very famous story in the Bible. Okay? In the book of Genesis, chapter 25, 29 to 34, it says this, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint, and Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with the same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore, his name was called Edom. And there's more information into Edom, how the people the powers that be, try to make Edom look like Adam, okay? Or Adamah, or Adam, or Adam, meaning Adam. So this is more of the people who are bearing rule, trying to inject themselves into being the people, into deceiving the people, okay? So it goes on and says, he says, for I am faint, therefore his name is called Edom. Edom also means red. And Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I'm at the point of death. I'm about to die. And what profit this day? What is it going to profit me? And so he said, he sold his birthright unto his brother Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils. And he did eat and drank, and he rose up. And he went on his way. This Esau despised his birthright. So I'm going to end right there. So I want to have a word of prayer. Can you get Sister, how do you pronounce her name?
Can you get it?
Can you get that song for me? So we're just going to play a song out to end the Sabbath. And Monday night, we're going to pick back up off on this. And pick up right where we left off at. We're going to go into the story in the book of Jasher, how Nimrod was out in the field, how Esau became faint, and we're going to expound more on this. And not only that, but we're going to hear more on the story and talk about how Esau sold his birthright for what some people would call a pot of beans. Is almost unheard of in those days. Although Esau was out of the birthright of this holy bloodline, he did gain another. And it seems through this other blessing, his actions, this is how this is what he exercises, and this is what he practices to this day. Okay? And we know that to be living by the sword. Okay? Very skilled hunter, a warrior, same way that Nimrod was, and also overcame men. All right? And so the Bible talks about that Esau would rise up and take off the yoke of his brother off of him. Okay? And would not be subjected to his rulership. And so to the days that we're living in now, Esau is ruling. At the end, the Bible tells us and if I'm not mistaken, 2 Ezra 6 and 9, that Esau is the end of this world. Of this world. Now we read today that I mentioned to you that world meant a society. So what would he be doing in this world, in this society? speaking of his rule. And I'm speaking of those who take on the spirit of Esau and follow after their father, because Esau really had forgot all about the indignation that he had towards his brother. But his sons, Eliphaz, okay, and not only that, they picked up that hatred or that hostility, and through anger, it was always war against the sons of Esau and the sons of Jacob. All right? So, with that being said, we got that song?
Which one? Who you living for?
He chose me. Yeah. With that being said, I want to end this song with this beautiful song from Sister, prayerfully I'm saying Sister's name right. What's Sister's name? Can you mention it for me?
Jacinta Awar.
I think it's just Jacinta Awar. Hopefully I'm saying it right. But it's a beautiful song. And, you know, we're going to just play this song and then we're going to decree and declare it. And wish you all the highest speed.
We have a couple minutes left on the camera.
Enjoy Sister Michelle's cooking. That's a very good cook.
Right? Hell yeah. Most High willing. Maybe next Sabbath, if it be the Most High's will. And, you know, you're able to. All right. Thank you, High. We got so many more scriptures to bring out, speaking about this wickedness, but think about everything that was said. Go back to this video. I'm going to favorite this video myself, because there's a lot of information in it. And moving forward, we'll just keep operating in the Spirit. I want to say we bless you in the name of Ahai Bashem Yeshaya. We love and we're praying for you and your family. And we pray that the Most High keeps you all in His perfect peace. That He keeps us blameless and perfect until the day and the coming of Yeshua. All right. We'll say Shabbat, honor up.